Campbell's comments absolutely wrapped now to be joined by the CEO of Harness Racing, who's just walked into the easiest job going. Dayle Brown, firstly, mate, haven't seen you for a long time, so welcome, and how's things going?
Good to be back, Paul, and good evening to everyone. It's been a very interesting time. As we all know, the last 3 or 4 months have been extraordinary times for not just racing in this state, but the state generally, for the country and for sport. And as we come into this second wave, if I can refer to that, of COVID-19, we're moving into a new dynamic again as to how we're going to deal with it.
It is, and it's an ever-changing feast. We've had a couple of little announcements or text messages and that coming through today, so it's quite a good time to be actually catching up and probably reiterate what HRV are trying to point out, but also the state government. I think it's a lot of people turn around and say it's HRV driving this. The state government's actually driving this, and the Australian government, and really the world. I mean, we're trying to contain a pandemic that's very hard to keep a handle on, isn't it?
Look at this, Paul, and you'll remember back in 5 April where we first went into the 6 hub model, and it was off the back of a spike of 111 cases back on the 28th of March. And when you look at the breakdown of that, the cases were 70% were travels from overseas, 20% were known transmissions in the community. So we had a handle on where all these cases were, we knew where they were emanating from. So as we went through the regional model over the last few months and we slowly started to come out of it, we folded back into a 4 region model, east, west, and also Mildura. And then we looked at what we would do from a normalised racing model in relation to how we get to a point where we can come out of it safely. So we said 1 July we would come out of the regional model we folded back into a smaller model. And as that was approaching, this COVID-19 situation began to raise some issues around, it came back basically, and there were issues of COVID-19 back in the community. The spike was starting to lift again day by day, and as we got to that sort of July 1 deadline where we're going to come back to normalised racing, we said we would continue with the 9 clubs till 12 July that were under the current sort of, I suppose if you'd like, the current system where we had the lockdown in the hubs, and they were pretty well versed at using the COVID-19 protocols. They were well schooled at it, so we wanted to keep that going as we watched what was happening in more broader society. And as we get to that sort of just past 1 July, we've faced with a whole new problem, and the situation has got worse. You only have to look at what happened on 7 July where we had 191 cases, but this time the difference was that 154 were under investigation. So this unknown community transmission, where it was transmitting from, who, we were in a situation where we had hotspots around Melbourne, and the health authorities were scrambling to try and detect who was spreading it, how we could lock it down. And the interesting statistic, even if you look at the numbers, how they've been large over the last few days, was that community transmission in Victoria was 43% compared to New South Wales, which was 3%. So the exec team and myself got together, and we knew the government were looking to lock down these hotspots and these zones around the metropolitan area, including Mitchell and Mitchell Shire. And we then took the view that we would respond by making that as a metro hub, if you like, keeping the people in the hot zones or hot spots locked into a metro hub, which is, as we know, Cranbourne, Kilmore and Melton, keeping those people to that zone, because I was getting a lot of messages from people in the region saying they were very, very nervous about people coming from the hot spots, racing in other clubs in the middle regions and up to Mildura. And then we looked at the middle region, we looked at even dividing that into 2, but we thought we were safe with having it as a middle region like the country region where you've got Stawell, Ballarat, Terang, Shepparton and Bendigo, all clubs well versed in the COVID protocols. And we've got our outlier, our Sunraysia community,
yep,
which encapsulates Mildura. So that's where we are today. And we know what happened to the government 48 hours ago. They locked this area down, and there's only 4 reasons you can leave home in this area. So really important now that, you know, from an industry point of view, the health and well-being of our people is paramount.
Even people in my zones here in Bendigo and what's called the regional zone now, we must take care and we must take precautions. Even though we're not in lockdown, we effectively need to treat ourselves as being in lockdown, minimise our travel, minimise the cross-contamination, if you like, of participants as much as we possibly can.
Yeah, the government and health authorities can only do so much, and we, as Harness Racing Victoria, can set all the guidelines out, and so this is best practice which we've got to follow. But it's up to all of us now as a collective to really ensure that we follow the protocols of the race meeting. I want to reiterate again, if you don't feel well, don't go to the races. If you're showing symptoms, go and get a test for COVID-19. Try and practice social distancing. I know we want to go and put an arm around someone and encourage someone. We just have to be so conscious of it now, because the community transmissions in this hot zone in Melbourne are considerable, and the numbers from what we're hearing are going to get worse before they get better. And the health authorities said that today. And when we're at the races, have your engagement and then leave.
Yep.
We want to keep racing. It's really, really important. We want to keep our industry going, but the paramount consideration is the health and well-being of everyone. We've got an ageing demographic, Paul, as you know. We've got an older cohort of people who love the sport, love being there. We want them to continue, want them to enjoy the sport, and just think about all those things about keeping us healthy and well. We'll still have our metro racing, as I said in the releases we've come out of Harness Racing Victoria. We'll have metro racing in the middle region and also in the metro region in Melbourne. So the good horses will still get their chance to go around for the $20,000 stake at metro class level. But the important thing is really, really to observe these protocols, to keep each other healthy and well, to really wash your hands, really do all the hygiene things, think about others, think about our industry and how we all can play a very small part in keeping us going through this really difficult period and keeping us healthy and well.
I think when people are at race meetings, and I haven't been to a lot, only the ones I do for Trot's Vision, if you're not comfortable with the way someone is around you or whatever, just ask them or move, because I mean, we're not at full numbers in horse stalls and horse environments. So I think one thing that clearly, like, if you're not comfortable where you've been situated or how it's been situated, move, or ask that person to move if it's a little bit easier for them. I think manners go a long way in this day and age, but we're also allowed to ask people, you know, we're not being rude, just tell them that you're not comfortable in that environment and try and get somewhere where you're comfortable and they're comfortable as well.
Yeah, talk to the club secretary, talk to the compliance steward who's around, making sure and social distancing is being observed. We'll still have temperature testing on course. All the things we're doing, all the really tight regime we've got in place will continue. But if you're not comfortable, have a chat to someone, talk about it, and if you're uncomfortable, you've been positioned in, say, the stalls, for instance, let's move someone, let's put some space between people. Don't all congregate in the stalls to watch the race. Try and spread out. Try and stay away from each other. Try and keep that distance. Very, very important. Even those stall environments where we're a bit more enclosed, keep apart from each other. Get your engagements done and head on home so we can keep going and keep this wonderful sport heading in the right direction.
Text message was sent through today about wearing masks at meetings. Drivers already wear neckies up over their nose and mouth, and pretty much what they should do now is when they get back in off the horse stalls, leave them up over their face and just walk around with those. It's a starting point. It's not an ideal mask, but at the same time, it's better than nothing.
That's a great point, Paul, and I encourage people that if they want to feel even more protected, to wear a mask. We can't, certainly not, the government's not mandating it, but today they suggested if you're in a hot spot and you're out for one of the 4 reasons, you're allowed to be out, exercise, going to get shopping, and you can't practice social distancing or can't maintain that 1.5 metres apart, pop a mask on. Just give yourself that extra layer of protection to help yourself to get through this period. We've got 6 weeks of, you know, some really potential troubling times, and I know the government are working hard on this, and if we play our part, we can come out the back end of this, because we've got such a great back end of our calendar to look forward to at the back end of the season. The sooner we flatten this curve and suppress it and get rid of it, the quicker we can get back to normalised racing and our fantastic metro racing and our features and our futurity events and our New Year's Eve and into our Summer of Glory. We want to really, really, really enjoy that and get out of this and get back to a normalised environment.
was a little bit of banter on social media the other day, and some people saying that they wanted us to keep racing like the thoroughbreds and like the greyhounds. I can say that I had more than one private message sent to me on just one post that I'd put up about people's concerns and the like. So just because one or two people think that we should be in an open state, I think at the end of the day, people's safety. But I think overwhelmingly, people are happy with regional lockdown. And I think if it comes to the stage and you have to divide what's classed as regional now up to east and west again, or something along those lines, I think people will be aware of it and understand why it's actually happening.
Yeah, absolutely, Paul. And I've been asked that question a number of times, and I've been asked it on radio. And I don't want to comment on what the greyhounds and the thoroughbreds are doing or aren't doing. What I want to focus on is what we're doing. I think we've got the best model if we get a positive in our ranks of our participants to keep racing, because we can fold that region back, do our trace testing, isolate the people in the region and keep going to other regions. If, for instance, as you alluded to, if we've got, say, someone tested positive at Bendigo or Ballarat, if we can isolate them in that spot, we can then cut the state, that region, middle region, into two, and continue in the east or west again, depending on where we find our issue. So we've got flexibility, we have to be agile, we have to be different. This regional model we're now is completely different to the one we're in March, and then we folded back out of the 6 regions. This is a completely different model again, because we've got racing, we've only got 3 hubs. We've got a big spread in the middle of our 5 clubs. So there's plenty of opportunity for our people to keep operating, to keep giving them the opportunity to race their horses, the juveniles, all that type of thing. We've got a bit more flexibility this time, but we also want to be agile, and if we get an issue, we can deal with it.
The other thing I want to say is that there's a lot of people on the cusp, if you like, or on the borders of where you can and can't, like the Mitchell Shire. Mitchell Shire travels a long way. It goes to Seymour. I have a lot of clients, myself as a dentist in Seymour, and I have to approach the way I go about those in a different way. But people near Melton and on the edge of Melton potentially travel to Ballarat to do the majority of his shopping as compared to going back into that zone. If you're in the regional zone, maybe treat it as regional zone. It's an inconvenience, but perhaps just for the time being, take that inconvenience, I think.
Do the most you can do, even if it causes a little bit of it's a little bit inconvenient for you. Just do as best you can to keep yourself in the region you're in. We've said that if your stable address falls whatever region it is, that's where you race.
Yep.
Your stable address, your horses are. So that's the test that says what region you're in. And if you're unsure, please give us a call and we'll look it up for you and give you an indication of what region you're in if you're on that cusp or on that border.
And if you're not feeling well and you don't want to go to a meeting, it doesn't mean you've tested positive to COVID, and it doesn't mean you're going to be stood down for a period of time either. If you take the right precautions, it's going to be looked on favourably, not oh, we're not going to let you back in for 6 weeks.
No, that's right. I mean, if you're unwell, you get a test. The test turns around in a few days, and if you're negative, that's fine. Well, just advise us, and you continue as you would normally. Just be cautious. Just be a little bit more cautious than you normally are in your life. Get all the right things done, like the test. Observe. If you've got symptoms, observe all the things you need to do, and see your GP. Or go to one of the testing sites if they're in your area and get tested. It's really important.
Absolutely.
Really important.
On everything else, mate, how's it all going? I know you've got plenty on your plate. Unfortunately, COVID-19 would be taking up all of that, but there's a lot of positivity around about the industry, I think. Talking to a lot of people, they were really excited about coming out of regional racing and getting back to metro racing. And it's been alluded to about how great a meeting that one meeting was, but there's still a lot of other positivity in the industry, isn't there?
Oh, there is. We've put in for an expression of interest for Saturday mornings. Sky have called for expression of interest around Saturday morning races. We've put an expression of interest in for that, given our foray into the North American market. We're also talking with Harness Racing Australia about our foray into Europe, around our trotting, into France, the PMU, and into Sweden, Norway and Denmark through the ATG. So we're really working through that, and we're looking to get our trotting back into those areas. And we're looking at a great back into the year. You've got the Breeders' Crown, you've got the Vic Cup, And then you've got our first time we're going to have the Vic Red Super Series finals on New Year's Eve, which will be exciting. We're talking to SEN, Craig Hutchison, to look at having that free-to-air on 7, which will be fantastic. So we're doing all the work around that at the moment. So then you go into Summer of Glory. We've got the Great Southern Star back to its original format, standalone trotting at card. All the things I talked about, we're starting to see them happen, and it's just such an exciting time. And you know, I said clearly, I said the city venue was one of my high priorities from a strategic point of view. We're working in the background on that. We're looking at what possible sites we can look at, and that work's being done. And there's a lot of things happening in the background. And you know, once we get out of this, we'll be able to start sharing those developments with the industry a bit more, and bring everyone along on an exciting journey that's ahead.
I don't like to interrupt you as you're going. So the city venture is definitely still on the cards. It's not going to be expanded on too much, but we're definitely trying to get back city tracks somewhere.
We're looking at different venues. We're talking to people, and you know, it's part of our strategic imperative, and we're working through that at the moment. So yeah, there's some good dialogue happening, and there's a lot of options, and yeah, we're going down a path where, as I said, everything's on the table, and I can't sort of talk specifically at the moment because we really haven't landed anywhere, but we're certainly doing that work.
And that's enormous. The other thing, you never thought you would have been Santa Claus. Duncan McPherson, all these Christmases had come at once. Once you brought the Great Southern Star back to being the heats on the final on the one night. I can't wait for it. I think just a different race format, which I know you're big on. I mean, we've already tried the Metro 80. Some people liked it, some didn't. But at the end of the day, it's not here day to day. But those different formats are what set our industry apart from thoroughbreds and the greyhounds. We can race twice in the one day, and on the big stage.
And it gives us an international flavour and interest. It all of a sudden opens us up to the world. If we set our racing right, people will come. They're good horses from North America, Europe, and give ourselves an opportunity to internationalise ourselves. All the big sports globalise themselves, because if you maintain yourself within your own hub, don't grow. You have to look out of your fence, and you have to grow accordingly, and you have to look where the opportunities are. And we've been doing that the whole way through this pandemic. We've been sticking out over the fence, we've been using an analogy and looking at where the opportunities are. If you sandbag and wait for this issue to go away, you'll miss the opportunity. So there's plenty of opportunity out there. While the world is struggling to come out of this, a lot of countries are in dire circumstances. Our product's still going. Our product is fantastic. There is a desire for our product internationally, and we just need to now get it into those markets while the opportunity's there and get traction. I think the more we do create that international interest, it's only going to grow our sport.
I think the one thing too, I think as an industry, and when I say this, a racing industry, the three codes really need to take a pat on the back for what they've been able to achieve. Because we have got still basically, like Sky Channel hasn't really changed. It's got wall-to-wall racing, and we've been able to do it. And the world's taken a look at what we're doing. So I think all three codes need to take a pat on the back. You give yourself a big pat on the back. I mean, you walked into a baptism of fire when you took the simple little job of being the CEO of HRV. But I think all three codes, and we've proven that working together gives us probably a little bit more leverage as well with SEN Track. And the likes that we're now being able to get to another radio station, which wouldn't have happened a year ago. There's no way known.
Absolutely, Paul. And I'll give you an example of that collaboration. The Greyhounds saw the opportunity on Saturday mornings when they knew we were going into that space. Alan Clayton, the CEO of Greyhound Racing Victoria, said, Dale, I really want to be shoulder to shoulder with you in this space. We'll race an alternative time. We want to be in this space with you. We see it as an international opportunity for us as well. So the Greyhounds are complete lockstep with us on that strategic play. And also Racing Victoria. Giles Thompson from Racing Victoria has completely supported us moving into that space. And they're quite happy for us to back end our racing into the thoroughbred space. And it really lends itself on a basis where you get to that back end of the year when you've got daylight saving. You can start a bit later, not at 8 in the morning. You can start around 9 and go to that 11:15, space 12. Then you start getting some real traction. Then you go into New York, all those places where we can get our vision into different spots across America. And I'm just looking forward to developing those strategies a bit more. And there are other days that are on the card for us. And I mean, we've been working with people on the ground in the US, and Thursday mornings back in the US on Wednesday nights, there's very little harness racing, and there's zones for us to put our product into. So there's lots of exciting things happening in the background, and look forward to sharing that more with the industry as we go forward.
Absolutely sensational, mate. You and me could talk all night. I had to do a reverse camera because all of a sudden people are just going to think I was just a face. It's a little bit later than what we were hoping to get this up and going. I did have a slight couple of little errors getting it all loaded up, but I appreciate coming on, and I'm sure participants are very, very happy. But honestly, they can still get in touch with HRV and discuss any of their concerns going forward as well. They don't have to just sit back and say, oh, well, this is how it's going to be. So
they can't get a hold of any of us directly. We're talking with our community group, just our leaders, Rob Orber, talk to Dan, Duncan McPherson, Nick Hooper from Breeders, Steve Warren, Lance Justice, Grant Campbell, Clinton Welsh. Talk to any of those people if you're at the track. If you got an idea, no idea is bad. This is about collaboration now, not about consultation. So if you've got an idea that you think might work and in this environment might give us a bit of extra pep in our step, sing out and let us know.
No idea is a bad idea. I love that. And plenty of people out there got left of centre once. But yeah, Dayle Brown, thank you so much, mate.
No worries at all, Paul. Good talking with you, and hope to see you soon on track when we can.
I look forward to it, mate.